Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. And coming up tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, we're dealing with waves of rain in the east that's going to be with us probably right into the weekend. Might even be a bit of snow up in New England with this. Winter weather advisories, ice storm, and winter storm warnings are up from Oklahoma northeastward into Pennsylvania and southern New York. We'll cover that. And heavy rains across the southern U.S. Several to many inches are being forecast. That's tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're beginning to see on the satellite loop the gathering of moisture in the Gulf of Mexico. And this is the first of several systems. You'll notice that clouds are coming in from the Pacific across Baja and into Mexico, and they're going to continue to stream up into the Gulf. So it's wave after wave of low pressure that is going to be affecting us. There's clouds streaming up into Arkansas and also up through the upper Ohio Valley and lower Great Lakes, and we've got some moisture there. And as we check out the radars, we actually have some precipitation showing up on the radar across the Northeast. You would think that you look at this and you'd think it'd be snowing all over the place, but a lot of this is not actually reaching the ground. We've got clouds that are moving through, but nothing of consequence really. That's some lead energy that's coming out ahead of this system. And we've got heavy rains in East Texas down to the Gulf Coast. That will be spreading across Louisiana and Mississippi and eventually toward Alabama and Georgia. Up in Oklahoma, northeastward through Arkansas and into southern Missouri, we're dealing with freezing rain and sleet and with the ice storm warnings that are up in some places. Some of that moisture now streaming up into Illinois and Indiana. And it's busy out in the west where we've got heavy rains in Southern California into Arizona and also up in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State and Oregon. We're seeing heavy rains with some snow up in the mountains. The winter weather advisories are up from Kansas, eastern Kansas, northwest Missouri, southeastern Iowa, much of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, western and north central Pennsylvania, even into northeastern Pennsylvania, as well as southern New York, southern Michigan. Ice storm warnings in southern Missouri. This was just updated, so the winter storm warnings and the winter weather advisories that were up for eastern Oklahoma and Arkansas and other places in Missouri have been taken down. So that's good news there. And we've got winter storm warnings up for the Sierra Nevadas. Now we've got a lead wave that's coming tomorrow, and WPC is indicating this is the probability of at least 2 inches. And you have to go up into northernmost Massachusetts and into Vermont and New Hampshire, as well as up in north central and northeastern New York, where you see a higher probability of at least 2 inches there, and also a high probability of at least a few inches of snow on the Canada side of Michigan and Lake Erie, which includes Toronto, and that extends back up into the rest of the state of Michigan. And as far as rainfall is concerned, we're seeing a considerable amount here. Now, they've already gotten some today, so we're talking about several to as much as 5 to 7 inches. This is actually this is 7 to 9 inches that's being indicated across central Louisiana. A lot of this area, by the way, still remains in extreme to exceptional drought, so this is very good news from that perspective. You don't want to get all that rain all at once necessarily, but it is going to be helping their drought situation. Here in the Northeast with these waves of low pressure, and this takes us through next Tuesday, and that potentially includes a system late in the weekend and early next week, we're looking at an inch and a half plus from eastern Pennsylvania across central New Jersey into Long Island and touching southeastern Massachusetts, a half an inch to an inch and a quarter just about every place else as you head up into central New England and down into eastern North and South Carolina and southeastern Georgia. So it's a gloom and doom type pattern. I mean, that's really the best way to describe it. Even though we had a fairly decent day today in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, we're going to have clouds. And you can see the moisture coming up tomorrow. There's the old Arctic high that is off the East Coast, off the Carolinas, But there's also a high that's coming into southeastern Canada. And we've been talking about this for the last week or so, how we're probably going to see a series of these highs coming down into that position. And sometimes colder air can bleed southward, and apparently it will bleed southward just enough to produce some freezing rain and snow in northern Pennsylvania and southern New York tomorrow afternoon, and then it will spread up into New England. It wouldn't be a shocker to me if we see maybe some wet snow in the lower Hudson Valley, and certainly in portions of interior Connecticut and Rhode Island, and eventually up in Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire. Rain on the southern end of it. It's not a lot with this first system, so it's quite possible if you're in central and southern New Jersey and point southward, you may not see much of anything rain-wise until we get to later Wednesday and Wednesday night, as a stronger push of moisture comes through, and that's all rain. We're going to gradually be warming up as we move through the week. That area will move out Thursday morning, and a third wave comes up for Thursday night and Friday, and we'll see some of that rain maybe even lingering into Saturday. And now here comes a fourth wave that is coming through for Sunday night and Monday. And you'll notice that another big high is coming down into southeastern Canada, bleeding cold air south. Now, don't get too excited, snow lovers, even though you see the GFS showing snow in New Jersey and Long Island and southern New England back into Pennsylvania. This would have to time out absolutely perfectly with that cold high coming down, because there's no block. So the high is coming down, moving in, and moving out. So it would have to time out perfectly with this low to the south in order to produce a snow event. So we're not really getting overly worked up about this until we get through the next couple of days and see how that timing works out with that high coming down from the north. We will discuss this in great detail tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, and that's at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. So please mark it down and join us tonight for a very lively discussion on the weather for the week ahead and the weekend.